Yeah, these three leagues continue to astound and confound and delight. You're listening to the NTT20 podcast, the Monday pod, breaking down an EFL weekend packed full of drama and talking points. This podcast sponsored by Sky Bet and the Sky Bet EFL Building Foundations Fund. He's George Ellick. I'm Ali Maxwell. We start with a big headline. Ding dong, Chansiri's gone. Sheffield Wednesday entered administration late last week. Chansiri's names were wiped from the stand. Those white seats that bore his name were taken out, replaced. The Chansiri era is over. That is fantastic news. Now, there is still going to be a lot of pain and a lot of hard work to come. Administration takes time. Takeovers, which we hope will come from this, take time. And we know from experience that there will be a lot of wreckage left behind to sift through. A 12-point deduction has been imposed on Sheffield Wednesday that has them now on -6, 16 points from safety. But George, a club removed from the hands of someone that was not looking after it, and that's to say the least, really. And by the looks of things over the weekend, a fan base revived.
For sure, yeah. It's funny because normally administration is generally very bad news for a football club, and when the news first broke on Friday, we saw quite a lot of news outlets reporting it as such. This is a dark day for Wednesday and everything else, because normally that is the case. In this case, hopefully it's the opposite, because the most important thing for Sheffield Wednesday in the short term was that Chansiri was no longer their owner, and this is the mechanic put in place to make that happen. And now there are administrators who've come in, who've spoken very eloquently in the first couple of days of them taking charge of the football club. Now, so there's massive positivity about Chansiri leaving, and that is completely correct. The stadium attendance at Hillsborough on Saturday probably went from being about 1,000 home fans to being 30,000 home fans, and that has shown this is a club that is waking up and is united again. And there was a great statement put out by the club kind of representing the players and the staff, basically saying that the club had been fractured for obvious reasons and that Saturday should start the beginning of Sheffield Wednesday uniting together. And it definitely felt like that was the case, as we'll get onto in the game coming up. There is, of course, issues with administration now, where as a club, they are going to have to sell to make ends meet. The administrators have spoken to the fans and said it's incredibly important that you now spend money, because that money is absolutely needed, because the day-to-day running costs of the football club are massive. But in this case, unlike other administration stories where normally a club will go into administration because there is no seller there in order to come and bail them out, with Wednesday's case, it's kind of felt like there have been buyers over the last 2, 3, 4 years, but the issue has been around paying Chansiri what he wants for the club. And hopefully those interested parties are still at the table, and therefore this can facilitate a sale relatively quickly. That's what we hope anyway. And if that is the case, then hopefully the period of administration isn't too long. But either way, Wednesday fans have got their club back. And I've got to say, from a standpoint of someone who cares very deeply about the health of clubs within the three leagues, the fact that hopefully we can say Dejan Chansiri's name for the last time on this podcast makes it a happy day.
I completely agree. On the pitch in the Championship, we have currently some kind of fun winning streaks. Obviously, we had a set of midweek fixtures as well in the week, and we have a team like Coventry City at the very top of the Championship, who have now won 6 in a row after beating Watford by 3-1. But we've also got a team with 4 wins in a row, a team with 3 wins in a row, and a team with big back-to-back wins since we last did a Monday pod. George, talk to me about the league leaders, Coventry City. 34 goals in 12 games, the most by any second tier after this stage since Wolves, 1965-1966.
Yeah, more of the same. Another 3-1 win, another good attacking display, another unbelievably clinical display, which is a theme with Coventry at the moment. We'll talk about the game itself first, with Brandon Thomas-Asante now topping the goalscorer charts in the Championship.
Crazy.
With Haji Wright 1 behind him. He's on 9, Haji Wright's on 8. Incredible between them. He's clearly absolutely thriving at the moment. He's basically looking I've always been a fan of his, even from back in the Salford days in League 2. But he's basically looking now like a different footballer to the one that I knew existed. He's added kind of a poacher's element to what has always been a really, really good kind of final third game in terms of ball carrying. an eye for the spectacular goal, a creative spark.
He's had such a weird progression as a player because Salford BTA was like dribbly, direct, goal threat, wide forward.
Yeah.
Probably playing off the left, if I recall. Then over time at Coventry and into last season, I feel like he almost got turned into almost like a target man type striker without natural height. So not someone that was doing a lot of aerials, but whose physicality and his bulk and his strength and his stamina and his work rate lent himself to being a good outlet at the top of the pitch. But it felt like his goal-scoring instincts were curbed, maybe by becoming more of just a player whose physicality was what managers wanted to use the most of. And this might be classic outcome bias because he's obviously scoring a lot of goals and he's gone from being someone that Cov fans probably felt was a fringe player at best to being top scorer in the Championship 3 months in. But he looks like he's lost a bit of that bulk, and I wonder if he's almost now merging the two player profiles that we've seen him have so far. Because he looks to me just a bit more agile, a bit more mobile, and a bit less, bulky maybe.
Frank Lampard got less bulky during his career, didn't he? So, and then the second goal came from Jamie Allen, who...
I want to be clear, the bulk that I'm talking about with Thomas Sante is pure muscle mass.
Okay.
This is not someone that I'm suggesting has ever been out of shape. Quite the opposite, but I wonder if... And it's happened a few... I think, I can't remember who over time, but it does happen sometimes where players get really jacked and then it changes the way that you move, basically, and then you get a little bit less jacked and back in business.
Yes, a player that's never been jacked is Jamie Allen. But he scored the second goal. And what's funny about this is that Victor Torp, who's had such a ridiculous start to the season, was injured for this one. So Allen came into the side. Now, Torp has scored 6 goals this season from 1.56 expected goals from 27 shots. A frankly absurd conversion rate. Jamie Allen comes in, plays exactly the same role, scores a pretty Torp-style goal, like a bouncing ball that he arrows into the bottom left-hand corner, which means that Allen this season has 1 goal from 0.15 XG. So between them, playing in that position alongside Grimes, whoever Coventry have picked, have scored 7 goals from 1.8 expected, which is crazy and probably something we can't really expect to continue, but a very good finish. There are caveats to this win, though, and we've said this a couple of times with Coventry games, because Watford weren't without chances themselves. We saw Rocco Vata get a chance within the first 3 minutes before Brandon Thomas Asante had put Coventry ahead in the 3rd minute. He had a one-on-one that was saved by Rushworth, where it kind of looked like he thought Rushworth was going to go to ground. He messed it up a bit, but it was like a good chance. Loser also had a shot really well saved.
That was a great save.
Arrowing into the bottom corner. So it wasn't like Coventry completely nullified the threat of Watford's. Sakamoto scored another goal that was planted into the corner from the edge of the area. This is what Coventry are very good at. And then Abankwah was sent off just before half-time for Watford with a frankly absurd decision to go to ground.
What was he complaining about?
It was bizarre. I mean, the only thing he did well was that he made sure the foul was made just outside the box rather than giving a penalty away. Watford got their own penalty, which Loser dispatched. He's having a brilliant season, a real bright spark at the moment for Watford. A player who, I'm surprised, is only 26, but is dominating games in the midfield and is also kind of proving to be Watford's biggest goal threat at the moment with his shots from range. A really well taken penalty. And they had chances later on in the game too. And that's why, if you look at this game from a post-match perspective, the expected goals, including the penalty, look like this: 2.61 to Watford, 1.31 to Coventry. Now, game state plays a massive part in that, of course, and the fact that Coventry were 2-0 up after 7 minutes is going to dictate that. But having said that, they did play the second half against 10 men. There has to be a question mark about Coventry and about whether or not this overperformance, which is pretty obvious they are overperforming, is going to end up biting them in the bum. And I would say I wouldn't be too concerned, really. Like, they might regress a little bit. Their 34 goals this season come from 27.2 XG, but they still top the XG 4 charts. Yeah. And the 12 goals that they've conceded. They've conceded 12 expected goals this season, and have conceded 9. So again, a little bit overperforming there. But they're 21st. They're
top
they're
all
4th.
the underlying numbers charts.
Exactly, and their goal difference this season is plus 25, and we're not even at the end of October yet. So you could factor in a big Coventry City regression, and frankly, they aren't probably going to continue picking up the PPG that they're getting at the moment in their recent run of games. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to win the league. That doesn't mean that they aren't the best team in the league. Like, they can regress and win games by a marginal amount and still continue winning games. So I think you can factor in a drop-off, but unless some of the chasing pack, unless an Ipswich, a Middlesbrough, Bristol City, unless one of these teams goes on you can either kind of raise it to their level and goes on an amazing run. Right now, there's a reason why Coventry City are odds on to win the league, and I wouldn't disagree with it at all.
And that's the extra caveat is we analyse the teams themselves, but you have to take into context the rest of the division. This is a championship that currently looks incredibly close. We are seeing surprise results constantly, barely any points gap between, what is it? Charlton are 6th on 19, Derby are 17th on 14, so it's all very congested. And a lot of the teams that are currently 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th are overperforming their underlying numbers as well, in the form of Millwall, Bristol City, Stoke, Charlton to a certain extent. So those teams as well may be due being pulled back a little bit of regression on that front, which obviously means that if Coventry do so too, it may have even less of an impact. Then there's the fact that the 3 teams that are always held up as the most likely teams to put together the sort of run that Coventry have put together, right, would be the 3 teams that have come down from the Premier League. I think that is still the case. They are still the 3 teams most likely to do a run of 28 points in 12 games, for example. But Leicester are 11 points behind Coventry at this point, with a possible points deduction to come. Ipswich are 12 points behind Coventry at this point, and Southampton are 16 points behind Coventry at this point. So there's lots of reasons why, even with the caveats, things are probably going to look pretty good for the foreseeable. I mean, the NTT20 squad reaction to this game was quite funny. Adam, who's Watford's reporter, said, Watford have produced a half so simultaneously calamitous and impressive that it has to be seen to be believed. And that was reflected on the highlights. And Tom, who's a Coventry fan, said, today was comfortably our worst performance of the season. 3-1 win.
Interesting run of games for Coventry now. They go to Wrexham, who are clearly improving. They then host Sheffield United. They go to Stoke. They host West Brom. They go to Middlesbrough. They host Charlton. They go away to Ipswich. That's basically, you've got teams there who are either already in the top 5 or 6, or you've got teams like Ipswich or Sheffield United who expect to kind of make their way there. So, I think by the end of November, middle of December, Coventry either going to be clear, I would say, or if that regression does come against better teams, I guess there's a more likelihood that they get chased down.
6 wins in a row for Cov, 4 wins in a row for Millwall. They beat Leicester by a 1-0. Azizi does it, because Femi Aziz is on fire at the moment. 4 goals in 4 games, the winning goal here, and it was the exact same run that he made in behind from outside to in against QPR. On that occasion, he was found by Billy Mitchell. On this occasion, he was found by Casper De Norre. Great movement from him. Love wingers that consistently run in behind. Think it's a really, really important and underrated skill, because it's a little less visible than those who are just good dribbly wide boys. Aziz is that as well, by the way. But a good pass from De Norre. Not great defending from Luke Thomas, who just struggled with Aziz's physicality. And it was 1-0. Winks then put in a hilariously dumb tackle. And Aziz won a penalty from that. But it was Ivanovic that took it rather than the in-form Femi. And Ivanovic had his penalty saved by Stolarczyk. It was a 1-0 win that was fully deserved. Leicester not creating much clear cut yet again. Per FOTMob, they are 15th in the championship for big chances. And it's 1 win in 8 games now in the league. Turns out those concerning numbers we spoke about were concerning, and Abdul Fatawu can paper over some cracks, but he's not the master plasterer. And that's that then. So Millwall, who lost 3 of their first 4 at home to 0, have now won 4 of their last 5 at home to 0. So any concern that the Den wasn't the fortress that it normally is have been put to bed. Alex Neil continuing to operate beautifully as Millwall manager. And Aziz is interesting because he's 24. There's a lot of younger dribbly boy wide forwards in this league, but he's what I would consider quite a young 24 in footballing terms, in that he didn't break through and have a proper season as a starter until he was 22 with Reading in League One. He bagged an 8-goal, 9-assist season and then got the move to Millwall. He had a season last time out, sort of getting to grips with the level, and now looks absolutely excellent. The quality of his shooting, his passing, his dribbling, and his movement off the ball have all really stood out this season. And it's a fantastic piece of recruitment, you have to say, from Millwall. And he's currently one of the stars of the league. Tristan Kramer as well. Another fantastic piece of recruitment from Millwall. Plucked him from his loan at Exeter as his only kind of first team experience, and now looks like just an absolute sensation. Basically, had another good game here, whether he's playing centre back or right back, fulfills the role that Neil wants to fulfill perfectly. And he's just, he's a dreamboat as well. One of the most magnificent French people I think that's ever existed, basically. And just thinking about Tristan Kramer just makes me want to get in the car, pack it up, get Matilda in there, get the dogs in there, get Mrs. M in there. I want to drive to the south of France. I want to spend the mornings running long distances in the hills to try and get in shape like Big Tristan. And then I want to spend the afternoons at the vineyards of South France, just becoming a little more cultured like Big Tristan.
Do you think Tristan spends time in the vineyards when he goes home?
Yeah. I think so, because red wine keeps the doctor away, doesn't it? I hope so, anyway.
Careful. You don't be giving medical advice like that on the podcast, I don't think.
But I'm feeling very holiday at the moment. I don't know if it's because the clocks have gone back and the days are getting shorter and darker, but I'm thinking a lot about holidays.
Well, we used to ban each other from taking holidays during the football season because it was basically impossible to keep up to date with the league. But that's all changed. Now we have NordVPN.
Yes, it has. Big time. Watching sports while you're abroad, no longer an issue. And that is why, officially, it's time to announce that I will be spending 10 days in Soto Grande around the turn of the new year. Hope that's okay.
Not sure I signed up on that. Are you going to be able to do the pod, or are you going to be fully off-grid?
No, don't you worry. I'm not going to miss a single kick of EFL football, George. Live stuff, highlights, all of it, be absolutely fine. With NordVPN, you can switch your location from anywhere in the world in order to access the content that you pay for and enjoy at home. I used NordVPN when booking the flights as well to avoid price discrimination, cookies and that sort of stuff. It helps with all of it. It's very, very easy to use. It's one of the fastest VPNs out there. It's great for cybersecurity as well, which you know is important to me. It can shield your online activity from hackers, and it makes public Wi-Fi safer to use. It's just a great and important addition to modern life.
And we've got an exclusive discount for NTT20 listeners, a discounted price and 4 extra months for free by heading to nordvpn.com/NTT20. That's nordvpn.com/NTT20.
The city of Birmingham travelled to the city of Bristol on Saturday. Bristol City getting it done by a 1-0. 3 wins in a row for Struber's sexy army.
How good are Bristol City? That's the question I'm asking myself now, because they are continually churning out really good performances and very, very good results. And they're doing this despite having Jason Knight out, probably the player that we would... I think if we had made a list of players who we thought were most important to their team's success at the start of the season, he'd have been right up there.
He would have been on mine for sure.
And he's not there.
No.
And they got Max Viner playing midfield because Max Bird isn't there either.
Yeah.
And
Joe Williams, not there either.
There. Rand and Vine are playing really well in midfield, and it's just working. But the big story here, because I don't know, it's one of those 1-0 games where there's not loads to analyse. Like Bristol City saw out the game pretty well. Birmingham missed a couple of chances. It was a game of a few chances. Birmingham dominated possession, but Bristol City saw it out. But the main talking point to have here, I would say, is Sinclair Armstrong, who has been through a lot. Like, I listened to his post-match interview after this, and you could see from his reaction after he scored, and you could hear in his post-match how difficult it's been for him, because he's a player who kind of burst on the scene at QPR. He was the one really positive story that came out of a very bad reign of Gareth Ainsworth, where Ainsworth seemed to breathe that kind of belief into him, and he looked really, really good. There's, as a profile of player, the potential for him is obviously ridiculous, because he is incredibly strong, he's incredibly quick and very, very direct. And at times he's looked technically deficient, but at times he's also looked really good on the ball, both in terms of holding up and getting in behind and getting into goal scoring opportunities. The assumption was, he had a pretty difficult spell last season at Bristol City under Liam Manning, where he scored a couple of goals early on, and then his form kind of really nosedived. And there was an assumption at Bristol City that they'd be trying to get him out of the club over the course of the summer, and that didn't materialise. But the the work ethic that he's put in and the way that he's approached games under Struber has meant that when he was on the team sheet on Saturday, generally Bristol City fans thought, yeah, fair enough, he deserves this opportunity to show what he can do. And that was probably unthinkable a couple of months ago. And he took that opportunity. A brilliant pass from Rob Atkinson through to Armstrong, who ran onto it, took the first touch with his left foot, opened his body and planted it into the bottom right-hand corner. Basically just brilliantly taken. Like, none of that, probably not a player that Bristol City fans would have anticipated to show that kind of composure in front of goal, and he took it really, really well. And he's a player who should have a really high ceiling. Like, he's someone who I could definitely imagine. He's clearly like a big confidence player, as shown by the big peaks and troughs of his own form. But if he can get into a good groove, especially because this is a Bristol City side who attacks so well in transition, there's no reason why he can't be a massive, massive force for Bristol City this season. And getting a goal here is really important in terms of doing that. Birmingham City fans will be frustrated. It was a bit of a false dawn. Their backs to the wall win in midweek against Preston. They're obviously not playing particularly well. They need to find a way to improve pretty soon. They've got a couple of home games coming up next week with Pompey and Millwall, which, given their decent home form, should be an opportunity for them to get back to it. But this is all about Bristol City now, who, as we keep talking about, this is a season where, clubs who found it difficult to go toe-to-toe with parachute payment clubs are going to have an opportunity to really lay a claim to those top two spots. And the way that Bristol City are going at the moment, they have to be in that conversation. Yeah,
getting a lot from a group of 7 or 8 or 9 players. Obviously, with the absences that you mentioned, Sinclair Armstrong started because Emil Rees, who joined in the summer, missed his first game so far. There are 6 players that have started every single game so far. That is Vitek in goal, Viner in various positions, Rob Atkinson, Adam Randall in midfield, who's slotted in brilliantly, Anis Mehmeti and Scott Twine in those roles with Jakobsen. So that was the first game that Rees, Twine and Mehmeti hadn't started essentially in the 3 attacking roles for Bristol City, which shows that there's been some form of kind of continuity within the starting 11, but also that group of players really are performing excellently as a group. You've got Rob Dickey and Ross McCrory as part of that conversation as well, who both missed 1 or 2 games max. It was a nice moment for Sinclair Armstrong. I think benefited from Beadle seemingly sort of slipping as he was trying to set himself. But that's 108 championship appearances already for Armstrong, of which 68 are off the bench, and he's still very young. He's 22 years old. There is a group of under 23 strikers playing in the Championship this season, and not many of them are scoring at a particularly high rate. If you look at non-penalty goals, under 23 strikers, it's actually your man Will Lancashire now, who is top of the pile, 0.42 non-penalty goals per 90. Then Daniel Jebison, another young player who's been kind of much maligned for being thrust into the spotlight basically when they're really, really young and still kind of learning their trade as a number 9. Then it's Sinclair Armstrong now at 0.3 goals per 90, albeit in very, very limited minutes, only 300 minutes. Then it's Stansfield, Vivaldo Semedo, Iran Kunda and Kieramgard of Watford, Divine Mbama, 0.2 goals per 90. Then Conway, 0.19. Miles Leeburn, 0.15. Josh Coburn, 0.13. Ivanovic of Millwall, 0.1. Bailey Cadamartri, 0.1. And then Tyrese Campbell of Charlton and Tom Cannon of Sheffield United, who haven't scored. So within that cohort of under 23 strikers, Armstrong, again, in very reduced minutes, is very much in amongst it and looking fine. He has played almost exactly 46 90s in his career in the Championship so far. So a full season's worth of minutes now across 3 or 4 years. And he has scored 7 goals, which obviously is not particularly prolific. But hopefully, that there is still a lot of growth to come, and hopefully a bit of confidence and maybe a run of games could be very interesting indeed. For Birmingham, half of their 12 league games this season, 6 of 12, they've had either 1 shot on target or less than that.
Wow.
They're really, really struggling to generate meaningful goal-scoring opportunities.
When do you think Chris Davis comes under pressure?
I thought he kind of already was before midweek, and then it felt like midweek bought him 4 days without pressure, and then losing this probably buys him a bit more pressure.
I think this week, it's massive. Having the Saturday, Tuesday, or Saturday, Wednesday, whichever one it is, both at home, they have to win. Well, they don't have to win 1.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's going to be tricky for him, and it makes sense. I think there's horses for courses. I think his style of football very much suits them in League One, where they could dominate every week, and now often dominating possession, but their high line gets exploited by better managers and better
Yeah.
players.
Yeah, I see that. I think if I was going to bat for Chris Davis at this point, I would point to underlying numbers suggesting that performances really aren't that bad.
Yeah.
And also, I would look at the squad and look at some quite clear deficiencies across pretty much every area of the pitch and wonder whether we were all a little bit blinded by last season's points tally and thought that the players that had put it together and those that had been added this summer were going to take them a lot further than they actually are so far. Derby, massive week for them. Massive week. We've been worried about them. We've been worried that they weren't feeling very John Eustace-y, and then they win 2 home games by 1-0. Fully deserved win against QPR, against Norwich in midweek. It was probably a little tighter than that. But Langas setting up Morris to score, to put them ahead. They were the ones that hit the woodwork twice more in the game. Johnston and Brereton Diaz are both hitting the woodwork. It's definitely their best defensive performance of the season, restricted QPR to almost nothing. Kone did have a well-placed header that he missed, but it was the fewest shots on target, the lowest XG faced for Derby this season, and probably a nice afternoon for Zetterstrom in goal, who's been getting a lot of love recently for his shot-stopping display.
Just a quiet day.
Just a very, very quiet day. So you look at Derby's last 8 games now in the league. They've had 3 1-0 wins, 3 1-1 draws, and 2 1-0 defeats. No more than 2 goals in any of those games. It is now starting to feel a bit more John Eustace-y, and hopefully the confidence that they get from these wins can see them start to achieve what I certainly thought they might achieve this season.
You're saying it's beginning to feel a bit like Eustace.
It's
a bit early
That's
for that,
nice.
isn't
It's too early for that.
Shame.
2 weeks, 2 months till Christmas. That's probably
Some people are already getting excited.
Closer than I thought.
Seeing a few lights around the place.
For QPR, good win at Swansea midweek, which kind of makes this, I guess, a tiny bit easier to swallow. But it was a very poor performance. 3 points from 2 away games in 4 days is no disgrace, but certainly a concerning performance for QPR. Let's go back to Hillsborough, George, because in the midst of Wednesday being placed into administration, loads of work being done to reinvigorate the ground, to get fans back in, to make sure the infrastructure was there for fans to get back in and spend as much money as they could in the club shop, which apparently was a huge success. The team had to play at home to Oxford, and their poor form sadly continued. Sadly for them, presumably not for your Oxford United friends. You somewhat ruined the party here with a 2-1 win. Yeah,
I mean, to an extent, I think Wednesday fans, as frustrated they'd have been to not getting anything out of the game, will look back on it and think, actually, you know what, like in the grand scheme of things, kind of irrelevant, albeit they have a points deficiency to make up now, having had the 12 points deducted for going into administration. But this was a real game of 2 halves. I'm afraid to use the cliche, where in the first half it was incredibly chaotic and very end-to-end, but Oxford scored 2 goals thanks to a diving header from Will Lancashire and then a Cameron Brannigan free kick, which was kind of extraordinary. On first viewing it, you had to think that Lumley had made an error to let it in, but there's a reverse angle which shows that he basically just hits it unbelievably hard and incredibly placed, like kisses off the inside of the woodwork into the bottom left, Lumley's bottom left, his bottom right. Philip Krastev missed a really good opportunity before that where he tried to round Lumley and didn't really get past him. But it felt like Wednesday were there for the taking there, and despite a full house at Hillsborough, Oxford were deserved
nailed it
leaders at halftime. The second half was very, very different. In the first half, Brody Spencer had gone off injured and Sam Long had come on, and in the second half, Cameron Brannigan went down injured. And whilst he was off the pitch having treatment, Fazia scored for Wednesday from a set piece, and then it was just one-way traffic, just wave after wave of attack. Oxford had no outball, no way of really finding a way to progress the ball up the pitch. And Wednesday had a few opportunities, basically all of which fortunately went straight to the path of Jamie Cumming. There was a
Jamal Lowe, right?
There was a Jan Valery one where he planted it in the corner, but Cumming was standing in that corner, so was there to make the save. Mass had one that was kind of a diving save made by Cumming. Lowe had one that went straight at the keeper. It was just one of those days for Wednesday where nothing went in. Should also mention that Mark Harris missed an absolute sitter, having come on. Some good work down the right by Plaheta on the break. Squared it to Harris, who sent the ball wide with his left foot. It was a performance in the second half full of promise from Wednesday. And, I think it's incredibly unlikely unless the buy comes very soon and they're able to kind of get to January and invest massively, like it feels almost an impossible job for them to get out of the relegation zone in my view now. But the fight was certainly there from the fans and the players. For Oxford, there will be big concerns about the second half, as I say, probably mitigated a little bit by the fact that Brannigan went off and Spencer had come off, and that it's a little bit leggy after 2 away performances. But saw the game out eventually and got a really important 3 points, which means it's 6 points from the last 3 games for them. So a positive result and a positive first half performance, but concerns obviously about the second half. For Wednesday, all season it's felt like away from home they've been a side that have been very, very difficult to play against. And at home, that's why they've had a bit of a soft centre, because they haven't had any fans to play in front of. It's been an empty stadium. I think we'll see a change in that now. I think Wednesday are going to be a much harder team to play against at home now that their fans are back and now that the club are moving and hopefully in the right direction again.
Stoke won at Fratton Park by a 1-0. We spoke last week when they'd beaten Wrexham 1-0. It was a bit of a Sorba Thomas special, an in-swinging cross that went all the way in, a tight game that Stoke edged and won. Then in midweek they went to Millwall and lost 2-0, and here they travelled again down to Pompey, and it was another Sorba special basically that won them the match. Brilliant in-swinging cross from the left, headed in to his own net by Hayden Matthews. We also saw 2 more Victor Johansson specials, some astounding shot stopping to keep Portsmouth at bay when they had opportunities, particularly in the second half, which felt like it was kind of Mackenzie Kirk, who's Portsmouth attacker, against Victor Johansson, and Johansson coming out on top. It was a pretty lively Stoke display in the first half, lots of good forays forward for them, but Pompey did have plenty in the second half, and I think Stoke have nicked it a little bit in the end based on that second half on the balance of play. Again, we just take a look at Stoke, and I think if you bear in mind that they were in the bottom 10 last season, I think they finished 18th, did they? The fact that they've played 8 of the current bottom 10, they've won 6 and drawn 2. Very, very clearly better than those teams that they were among last season. It's another way of demonstrating the progress that they've made under Mark Robbins. We still don't know, I don't think, exactly what Stoke's level is until they play more of the top teams, more of the other strong starting teams. Obviously lost at Millwall in midweek, which was an opportunity for them to kind of prove themselves against one of those teams, and they didn't. For Pompey, just really struggling for goals. It's only 10 scored in 12 games this season. That's with 7 home games and only 5 away, so they're kind of unbalanced as well in favour of games at Fratton Park, and you wonder that they haven't necessarily made the most of those. But whether it's Colby Bishop, who doesn't quite look at his best, whether it's Connor Chaplin, who definitely doesn't look at his best since rejoining, the great news is that Josh Murphy came back here and immediately got on the ball down the left, shifted onto his left foot and put in a delicious cross with his left foot. Kirk drew that amazing save out of Johansson. So for Portsmouth, I think the fans aren't feeling great after this one, which is understandable, a home defeat. They've only conceded 13 in their 10 games, so defensively not a lot wrong. Just need to find a bit of swagger, a bit of confidence, and get those attacking players to click in order to start moving in the right direction. George,
yes,
Friday night, Preston Sheffield United was very entertaining,
really fun
televised fare. 2-0 to Sheffield United. In the first half, 3-2, a Preston win in the end. This one will be sweet for Paul Heckingbottom, former Blades manager, and sweet, certainly, for the match winner, Daniel Jebison.
Yeah, so I wasn't feeling very well on Friday.
Sorry to hear that.
So I went to bed with my iPad and watched the first 16 minutes of this game. It was a wild 16 minutes where we saw one of the most one-sided first 10 minutes of all time by one team, and then the other team had 2-0 up when I decided to close my iPad.
Fever dream.
And go to bed.
Sheffield United playing in purple as well. You must have been like, what is this real life?
So then when I woke up a couple of hours later to go to the loo, because I'm old, I was pretty perplexed to see the score and what had happened. And watching the extended highlights back first thing the next morning, what a game. It kind of continued in the vein that it started, with just each team having sustained spells where they were well on top and then the momentum would change and go the other way. And as I say, Preston, the latest team to find out that, you can have all the ball you want, you can be well on top, you can be creating chances, and suddenly Chris Wilder, Sheffield United, before you know it, will go the other end and score. Because they're a team who just don't need the ball and don't have to be in control of possession in order to exert their own dominance within games. And that, both goals came from moments in transition, a ball played through to Brooks, terrible defensive shape from Preston, a really nice finish from Brooks, and then the same with Callum O'Hare kind of getting in behind, a really nice touch onto his left foot and then fired it past Johansson to make it 2-0. I mean, North End fans sitting in the stadium would have wondered how that had happened, because they'd missed opportunities within the first 10 minutes or so, and they had more opportunities after that. And just a really important time for Lewis Dobbin to score a brilliantly taken goal, bending it around the defender into the far right-hand corner. He's a player that I'm really excited about. Preston have a lot of really good young loanees, but Dobbin in particular is one who's had a couple of loan spells elsewhere. And as we often see with academy kids, they kind of grow loan on loan, and it feels like Preston have got him at a really good time where he's starting to show his kind of true level. Straight after half time, a terrible start to the second half for Blades, with Tanganga kind of kneeing the ball into his own chest and looping over Cooper into the back of the net. Before, as you say, Jebison scored a brilliant header. I think it's another save that maybe last season Mike Cooper would have made. It seems that he got a pretty good hand on it and was unable to divert it away. Not a hint of muted celebration from Jebo, who was delighted with that. And then big chances at both ends after that. Samari with the best, which he fired over the bar. So I think for Blades, obviously huge frustration to be 2-0 up away from home and let the opposition back in as they did. For North End, their home record now is so good, and they showed here a different way of winning at home. Previously, it's been edging ahead and just staying ahead and seeing the game out. Here, they've roared back, having been dealt a couple of blows. And just an exciting side. Again, a couple of players, Jebus in particular, who was a bit of a laughing stock at Watford after his loan spell last season. Paul Heckingbottom showing that a bit of faith and a bit of time spent and a bit of belief really into these young players can pay dividends. And when you consider it's Dobbin, it's Jebison, it's Armstrong, it's Devine, like this is just a really fun, young, technically gifted kind of starlet team who are outperforming the expectations and going toe-to-toe with some decent sides coming out on top. So really excited for Preston and for Hecky because they are proving the likes of me and you on our pre-season expectations completely wrong.
Blackburn 2, Southampton 1. Whoever lost this game was going to go full nuclear after Rovers' recent form had them dropping right down towards the bottom, and Southampton, well, they are 20th in the Championship. Sitting here right now, the positive is the lad Leo Cienza looks unbelievably fun. He was incredibly fun against Swansea the weekend before without much to show for it. Here we got his first goal in Southampton colours, and the way that he shaped to shoot and then just sort of dummied it, rolled his foot over the ball to set himself once again, to shift the balance of the goalkeeper Toth and then fire it past him into the corner was just sort of next level composure that only super skillful and high IQ players have, really. He's a really interesting player because he's 27. He's playing kind of attacking midfield off the left. He made his breakthrough for a 5th tier Swedish side in 2020. Signed for Schalke's second team. Played for the Schalke second team for 2 seasons in the 4th tier of German football. Then signed for the Zweite Bundesliga team Magdeburg, but didn't really do much there. Had his breakthrough season 23-24. So 2 seasons ago in the 3rd tier of German football with SSV Ulm. He scored 12 goals in 34 games at that level. And then in the Bundesliga with Heidenheim last season and now with Southampton. So it's a really cool career path and a really cool player, and put Southampton 1 up here. But Blackburn were just consistently creating chances in the first half, even without scoring. Morishita probably had the best one. Something happened to Ahashi in the first half, which meant he put a swimming hat on, which was quite kind of fun. They obviously didn't have any bandages, so he genuinely had a swimming hat on.
Is that right?
Just no goggles.
Maybe you saw the forecast at half time. Remember what happened with Ipswich and thought, you know what, I'm going to get ahead of this.
Yeah, on that pitch, it's probably not the worst idea. Yuki Osplashy there. So although so many things are kind of true here, it was just such a messy game. Like Blackburn having loads of chances, and yet at 1-0, Adam Armstrong misses 2 one-on-ones. How often does Adam Armstrong miss 2 one-on-ones? Well, this season, quite a lot. And it's just Will Still must be tearing his hair out at the moment. the second half shot count was still 15-4 to Blackburn. So I want to make the point that Southampton, even though still creating plenty, even though massively underperforming their attacking numbers, still showing so little control on football matches that they should be showing some semblance of control over. And for Blackburn, well, it was just execution that was lacking. So what do you need in that scenario? You need a cross to go all the way in. That's what they got from Alibiosu, which got them level. And then Andri, son of Ida Gudjonsson, scoring his first goal in Blackburn colours, picking up some scraps after a shot was blocked and firing in the winner. Huge, huge for Blackburn. There is no doubt at all that their performances have deserved more than the points return suggests. They didn't fold when they were 1-0 down. They didn't down tools, even though things are starting to turn as we thought they might. If there was a bad run of form and performances, all is not well at the football club. We know that, and it doesn't take very long or many weeks of poor performances and results for things to turn. But I think you have to give a lot of credit to the team for the way they played here to come back and win it. Southampton. I mean, it's assumed that Will Still might be sacked soon. I believe, I don't know as much about their ownership group as some, but I believe they're fairly, or at least perceived to be quite data driven, in which case they probably won't sack Will Still because the data is fairly good, certainly on the attacking end. It's pretty rare, George, that a team would have the second most shots on target and have faced the third fewest shots on target after 12 games and be 20th in the league. So there is some real statistical anomaly stuff going on here, but that's not me excusing what's going on either. Like the fact that they can't seem to control games, the fact that Still clearly doesn't know his best team, and he's got so many players to choose from. 25 different players have started a league game for Saints this season. Defensive personnel all over the place, and it's reflected in their performances. They've switched goalkeepers. That doesn't seem to have made much of a difference. And then at the top of the pitch, you told me earlier about Coventry, about Torp, and now Allen. Over 7 goals from 1.5 expected. Saints are getting nothing from their midfield, really. And then at the top of the pitch, whereas Haji Wright and Thomas Asante are on flames, across Adam Armstrong, Archer, Jay Robinson and Damian Downs, 13 expected goals between the four of them, 6 scored. So they're all at sea at the moment, and they don't seem to have the kind of team spirit to actually kind of suffer tough moments, come out the other side and then dominate. And it's it's pretty bad vibes.
Yeah, but I mean, I definitely agree with you. There seems to be a big mentality issue, but like to be ahead in a game after, we spoke last week, or was it midweek, under the lights, about how there have been so many occasions this season when big moments for Southampton in games, something's happened within that game to turn it against them. And again here, like I totally take your point about not having the right mentality, not being able to get over the line. But you're 1-0 up and then a cross goes in and you're like, when is this going to end? Like, you can pick, it's obvious to take results and like Southampton lost, what went wrong? And I completely get that. And there will be things that went wrong. But at the same time, that cross does what most crosses do and just gets headed away or goes over the bar. Yeah. Then the scoreline's going to be different. It does feel, and Saints fans will say, how long can we blame bad luck? Like, how long can we give Will Still a free ride because of it? And I would say until you stop having bad luck, basically. It's a difficult situation for them to be in because obviously right now, like they're miles away from where they should be. But whilst there is still supporting evidence, and obviously Saturday's performance wasn't great by any stretch, but over the course of the season so far, they clearly should have more points than they've got. They're clearly doing a lot of good things. I still think I'd be really surprised if a kind of evidence-based, data-driven club like Saints thinking about making a change imminently.
Ipswich beat West Brom by 1-0. Baggies did so well. They did so well at Portman Road, and then what is basically an Icarus concession. A loose touch in midfield. Cajuste, well, did he foul him? Did he ease him off the ball? Was it just a loose touch? Did he not have control of the ball? Either way, it was turned into a Jack Clark winner pretty quickly.
Yeah, the whole in control of the ball thing's interesting because if you've got a guy running at you full pelt and you nick the ball away from him and then you get cleaned out, it's probably still a foul. Like I don't think you have to have the ball at your feet in order to be fouled. I think it's probably a foul, but let's not get into the weeds of that. Ipswich were maybe a bit better, definitely from a defensive perspective. They restricted Baggies to very little. They didn't have any kind of chaotic moments like we saw Charlton provide in midweek. They were the team that always looked likeliest within the game. Philogene in particular was doing Philogene things off the left-hand side. But it was the player who came on for him, and Jack Clark, who got the all-important touch. I thought Azon looked really lively. He's one of these players that, to see him look particularly composed in front of goal, but in terms of the positions he gets into, he's someone that I could see scoring a lot of goals for Ipswich if he can find that finishing touch. But it just feels like a really significant win this for Kieran McKenna and Ipswich Town. Like, they needed that moment at Portman Road where, off the back of that massive disappointment in midweek against a decent opposition, to get a late goal to see it out. Because they have to. They're kind of. It's early in the season, but they have loads of time in order to get that winning run going. Big for Clark. It's interesting to think back to your whole selling players is good. Like Sunderland selling Jack Clark a year and 4 months ago as their best player. Now Clark is coming off the bench in the Championship, and Sunderland beat Chelsea on Saturday and are now second in the Premier League. Like, it's amazing how quickly, if you operate well and reinvest money well, as a club, you can progress despite losing your best players.
Swansea beat Norwich by 2-1. This was a big game for both sides. I feel like we're saying that a lot at the moment. It's that time of season, isn't it, really? Sheehan's Swansea get the win. He has the Viper to thank for that. Zan Vipotnik, the snake in the grass when it comes to Norwich City here. But he won this game with two unbelievable strikes. I think we can say now that he is the best ball striking number 9 in the Championship. And there were, even in a disappointing first season last season, there were flashes. I remember the goal he scored at Leeds, which was kind of put down to one of many Meslier errors, but was actually just an unbelievably, like a surprisingly powerful strike. And that's what they were, both of these goals here. I mean, there's still stuff you can look at from a Norwich point of view and be unhappy with, even if you accept it's the quality of the finishing that wins Swans the game here. Topic giving the ball away in midfield, and as Stamenic drives through to play in the Viper, Topic is just trotting back, basically. It doesn't seem hugely fussed that he's just given the ball away in a bad area. But an incredible strike from Vipotnik. An equaliser from Makama of Norwich. Very sexy midfield play from Liam Gibbs. Josh Sargent played it across for Makama to tap in. That's his third league goal in less than 300 minutes. So really nice, strong start for him, stepping up from Lincoln. And then again, a loose pass in midfield from Norwich, gives the ball away, and Vipotnik, even better somehow. Basically, there's nothing on. He's 25 yards out, and he just unleashes hell. The power just makes it so difficult for any keeper to save into the corner. It's a massive win for Swansea. I mean, I became very alarmed this time last week when doing some research for a video for Dragon Sports, when I thought that Swans were broadly playing fine, whatever the points return was. And it turns out that wasn't the case at all, that they essentially had 4 strong defensive performances to start the season, and the defensive resolve has next to vanished based on the last 6 or 7 games. And going forward, they have possibly the worst attack in the league along with Derby. So cracks papered over here, I think, by the Viper, but they didn't create very much again outside of that. I think Sheehan has to really, really be quite grateful for him today. As for Norwich, I mean, what to say? They lose again. It's 5 defeats in a row. They didn't look after the ball well enough. That's clear from the goals. They weren't horrendous, but they just don't seem to convince for a full 90 minutes. Even when they're playing well, it doesn't seem to last for an extended period of time. And they're not creating a significant amount either. Outside of Makama's goal, they were pretty poor going forward. So, at the moment, it's kind of, will it be Will Still? Will it be Liam Manning? Will either of those lose their job imminently? Will the clubs really dig their heels in and really, in spite of unhappy fan bases, say, we believe these men are good head coaches and can be good head coaches for these clubs? We will see Swans and Alan Sheehan maybe in a similar position at some point, but a good weekend here. And then 2-1 draws. Hull drew 1-1 with Charlton. Injury time equaliser. Nathan Jones can do no wrong at the moment. Bringing on Luke Berry, who's just barely a first-team player for Charlton. Only his second substitute appearance of the season, but there can't be many with the knack that he has, and I feel like he scores these sorts of goals so regularly. That cancelled out Joe Gelhardt's opening goal, a very uncharacteristic mistake at the back from Charlton, where Gillespie could have cleared it. Instead, tried to dribble past two Hull players, lost the ball. Gelhardt fired into the corner. Hull minutes away from their 4th win in a row. What a run that would have been. But instead, it's Charlton who leave happier. In 6th spot, Charlton Athletic, the best of the 3 promoted sides so far, had that incredible win in Ipswich in midweek, and then up to Hull, fighting to the end to get a point. I'll leave the final word with Matt, who's a Charlton fan on NTT20 Squad, said, "This is really the best place the club has been in since Kerbershy left in 2006. 20 years we've been waiting for it to get as good again, and it just feels such a joy supporting this club again at the moment."
I just love this because there are people who laughed at Nathan Jones and called him an idiot and called him a clown, and it was just incredibly disrespectful to a guy who'd achieved loads. So, yeah, up the NJ.
Yeah. And then Borough 1, Wrexham 1. Josh Windass, whose dad played for Middlesbrough, shot going straight at Solberry, and let's be honest, deflected by Dale Fry into the net for 1-0 Wrexham. Good first half from Wrexham. Certainly pretty good for their 1-0 lead, but then Rob Edwards, a quadruple sub. It's the sort of thing you can do when you're in that sort of really strong start to the season. Lots of authority. Everyone's very impressed. You make a quad sub at half-time. You change the shape. Things just get better. Kiefer Moore did hit the bar, which could have killed the game, but Borough much better in the second half, equalising when Hayden Hackney headed home a Callum Britton cross at the back post. Not quite sure how Wrexham allowed that to happen. Hayden Hackney scoring headers inside your box. Not something that really should be happening, but you have to say, a good away point for Wrexham.